Hey everybody, you got the Hobby Drifter here again. It is Monday, July 26th, 2021, here in beautiful Tokyo, Japan. It's hot, it's humid, the Olympics are in full swing, nobody seems happy about any of those things, and I'm going to start a new series today. Since I've only got about 12 viewers, 12 listeners on stuff, your comments, they reach me. So I'm going to do a series where I just talk about, Japan stories. And I've resisted doing one of these for quite some time because I don't think that, being a foreign, especially a foreign white dude living in Japan is any way, special or interesting. But I do have a few good stories to tell, and, if you're interested in stuff, maybe you'll enjoy this, maybe not. Today I will be drinking a Haposhu. This is Mugi to Hoppu Kuro. It is, for legal reasons, not beer, which means it is taxed differently. The tax on this stuff went up recently, as the tax on real beer went down. So, that's nice. I strongly recommend this. It is, like, dirt cheap. It's like 100 yen per can, even after the tax hike. And it's very, very good. If you like black beers, you'll probably like this. There aren't a lot of Haposhu I would recommend, but this one is definitely one of them, along with Kinmugi. So I'm going to start at the beginning. How did I wind up living in Japan in general? And it was kind of a weird road. Most people come over on like an ALT program or work for an Eikaiwa or do JET or whatever. I applied for the JET program and did not get in with good reason. A lot of people who don't get into the JET program will tell you, oh, it was a paperwork error or yada, yada, yada. No, I just absolutely tanked the interview. But my girlfriend didn't. So she came to Japan while I was stuck in Chicago, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I was looking for more steady employment, or thinking about going and pursuing a master's degree with the intention of being a teacher. Then she calls me one day and says, hey, I've got this big place. The JET program has set me up with this big place in a place called Kyushu. In Kyushu is the prefecture, Fukuoka is the city. And she said, well, we got a place to stay. All you got to do is, buy a plane ticket. Why don't you buy a plane ticket and, hang out here in Japan for, a few weeks. Which I did. My family was not supportive. They were like, why the hell would you, waste your time and money getting, because... But my family's not big on travel historically, but I'd always wanted to go to Japan. I mean, I'm a nerd. I've always been a nerd, So go to Japan. Why not? Also, a year or two before, that same girl had dragged me like kicking and screaming to a Japanese buffet, and I'm an extremely picky eater when it comes to most food. But she kind of forced me to try all of the Japanese food at this place, and I loved just all of it. So, hey, a vacation where, I can actually enjoy, the food sounded great. So I did. I called up a travel agent called JTB, and they set me up with a 6-week ticket. I asked just, can I get, one way and I'll just come back whenever? And they're like, no, you need a visa if you're going to buy a one-way ticket. I knew nothing, just nothing. So they set me up with a ticket for 6 weeks, and it was about $700. It's the lowest I've ever paid for a round-trip ticket to and from Japan ever, and I think by a large margin. I don't think I've ever gotten another one for under $1,000. So maybe October's the off season. Maybe I was just lucky. Maybe they just set me up so they would get me off the phone. So I came to Fukuoka. It was October of 2006, so almost 15 years ago, and met up with my girlfriend. And I say that I instantly fell in love with Japan in general and Fukuoka in particular. But honestly, I came in like the middle of the week, so for the first 2 days, my girlfriend had to go to work, and it was just me in the apartment. And again, this is 2006. This is pre-smartphone. This is pre instant translation stuff, and I am just the worst with directions. So I had this fear that if I were to leave the apartment and stray too far from the apartment, I might literally never find my way back, because I had no phone, I had no Japanese experience whatsoever, and so I just basically stayed home and read some of the books that her predecessor had left behind, and used Pimsleur Japanese to just kind of learn some Japanese. And Pimsleur Japanese is, in fairness, not the worst Japanese language learning tool I've ever used, but it's not the best either. So yeah, it didn't start out great. Then, she introduced me to curry, which was life-altering. I'd never had curry before, and Japan has, there's Japanese curry, but also British curry, and Indian curry is very popular, Thai curry, all of it super, super popular here. Whole new world of amazing foods, and I just absolutely fell in love with, everything was clean, everyone was polite, everything, worked the way that it was supposed to, that the trains were super convenient. It was amazing. So I thought I would really like to stay here longer. And she said, well, you want to be a teacher in America, you could be a teacher here. And I thought, well, yeah, but I failed the interview. There are other companies. And I tanked the hell out of so many interviews because I thought they wanted your stereotypical, super serious, hard-working, business teacher. And no, turns out, no, they don't. They wanted someone friendly and with a sense of humor, and who could make people want to talk to them, which I was not at the time. So I tanked a whole lot of interviews until I had basically one more week. I had one more week to find a job that would sponsor my visa, or I had to go back to Chicago and then basically save up money to come back to try again. And I had one last interview, and right off the bat, it did not go great because the gentleman who was emailing me, I thought that he was a woman because of his name, but it turns out not. And he was not super happy about that. So I went to this interview, and I walk into the building that houses the office. And as soon as I walked in the building, I heard the Snoop Dogg and Akon song. It's like, I wanna fuck you. And I'm like, okay, that's the kind of business atmosphere we're looking at here. That's fun. And I go up and I find the office, and I'm in a group interview with two other people. And the other two people were better than me. The one guy had been living and working in Japan for years. His Japanese ability was quite good. He had experience teaching, young kids, high school, adults, everything else. The other guy had lived in Japan even longer, was basically completely fluent, in Japanese, and I think he owned a house in the area. Like that was how set up he was. And I was just like, I'd like a job, and I'd like Japan, and my visa's up in like a week. And then the owner of the company comes in, and he was this guy, and he briefly he's like, I like to introduce myself to all the, the prospective applicants, and he hands out his business card. And he asked me, he's like, so what's your deal? And I'm like, oh, I'm Kevin, I'm from Chicago. And he's like, you're from Chicago? I'm from Chicago. And I was like, oh yeah? And he's like, oh, Chicago, sweet home Chicago. And that was actually the year that the Bears went to the Super Bowl. And he's like, and we're going to win the Super Bowl this year. And I said, oh, I certainly hope so. They didn't. They did not. And that was the extent of my awful interview. As far as interviews go, this was not the worst, but it was definitely one of the bottom 5. And I figured I had absolutely zero chance of getting this. Like, I thought maybe one of the other ones might call me, but I was like, this one's just a wash. Then it was they didn't call me. So it was the day before I was gonna go home, and I'm waiting for my girlfriend to finish work because we're gonna go out for dinner to basically say goodbye for now. And then the phone rings, and it's the guy who I thought was a woman, and he said, "Hi, is this Kevin?" And I was like, yes it is." He's like, were you still interested in the teaching position? And I said, yes I am. And he's like, okay, there's just one thing. We need you to start tomorrow. And I'm like, I can do that, but I don't have a visa yet. And he goes, okay, we'll take care of that. Don't mention that to anybody. And for about 15 years, I didn't. So my visa was actually for longer than the ticket, but but he's like, yeah, we'll take care of that. Okay, well, welcome to the company, Kevin Sensei. And he told me like where to go for training the next morning. So my girlfriend comes home, and of course I had to, I was like, oh, I heard back from the other company. He's like, don't worry, when you come back. I was like, no, I got it. I got the job. He's like, you might have called to tell me that. We would have gone to a fancier restaurant. So I went in for training the next morning, and training was basically, here's your book, do what they tell you. Don't do anything to embarrass us. And that was it. Here's a printout of how to get from your girlfriend's apartment to your school. Now it was only one school, which was weird because most of the teachers had to work at 3, 4, 5 schools. I only had the one, and it was about a 3-hour commute each way from my apartment, which meant that I had to leave home at about 4:45 in order to comfortably be there on time, because there was 3 separate trains with a wait in between all of them, and at a cost of $600 per month. The company reimbursed me $150 per month. So for that first couple of months, it was 3-hour commute to work, full day, 3-hour commute back, eat dinner, pass out, wake up super early, repeat. And I was like saving up coins to pay for these train tickets because, again, I didn't have any money. I kind of forgot to mention that. I came to Japan with $500 in my pocket, and hadn't really been making any money since I was there. So, also, should be mentioned, nearly all businesses in Japan pay monthly. So, for me, starting in February, I would not see a paycheck until the end of March. And actually, that wound up being the end of April, because they figured since it was just half of the time in February, they would just roll that over into the next one, and I would get a good-sized check at the end of April. So, money's tight. I mean, I was like selling my possessions to other collectors just to get money to pay for the ticket. Finally, I got my check, and it was enough to rent an apartment closer to my school. Girlfriend wasn't terribly happy about that, but she also wasn't terribly happy with the current arrangement. So they found me an apartment. It was about half an hour from work, and it was one room with a unit bath. It's called a one-room mansion. So it was basically one room with a tiny little, sink and hot outlet and a combination, bathroom that has toilet, shower curtain, shower. And that's it. It was so small that the washing machine went on the veranda. You did your laundry outside. Nice thing. The total cost of the apartment monthly was about $280. With a catch, the apartment was located next to two different train tracks, the streetcar type train and the JR, rail, and the biggest, most, used street in the city. So it was very loud. Across the street from the apartment was where the taiko drum people would practice basically every day in fall, spring, and summer. And it was located above a porno store, below what they called the Adult Film Training Studio, which is where they'd made some of the porno videos that they sold on the first floor. And all of my neighbors were snack bar hosts and hostesses, usually packed 3 to 5 to a room, who would generally get off of work at about 3 o'clock in the morning. But $300 a month and half an hour commute to work. Only thing is, the reason that they needed someone to work so soon was because the previous employee had quit and fled the country, and they basically just needed someone to sit in his seat. And that was literally it. I did not have a single class for, I think, the entirety of that school year. I might have had 2 or 3 classes. Nobody at the school spoke reasonably good English, like communicable English. My Japanese was still terrible, although with no classes and 8 hours a day to sit there, studying, I was able to get pretty good pretty quick as far as things like reading and basic communication went. And I kept asking my company, I was like, am I doing this wrong? Are you sure I'm not supposed to be, shouldn't I be having classes? And they're like, no, we just need you to fill out the thing until the end of the school year. They literally needed someone to sit in the seat, and the 2 much more qualified people couldn't start that day. And yeah, it has haunted me just how absurdly lucky I was to get my foot in the door there. So I did that for a little while. signed the agreement. So back in those days, the contracts for a lot of foreign teachers didn't even pretend to be legal. Like they would just screw you around in every imaginable way. So if you broke your contract, like if you quit, the company could just keep your money. If you signed, an apartment agreement, that was it. You were locked in for that amount of time. So you were stuck. Which is why it kind of didn't work out great that after a few months in my new place, my then girlfriend called up at about 1 o'clock in the morning and dumped me. So I was locked into another year contract in wasn't even Fukuoka, it was Kitakyushu, Japan, a really famous Yakuza city, for another year. Couldn't really speak to anybody. And again, this was, pre-smartphone, so, internet stuff was very limited, and it was very isolated. So that was how I came to Japan. I came on a whim because I got a really good deal on a plane ticket, came to visit my girlfriend, got extremely lucky in getting a job at the last possible moment, and then wound up locked into a contract in a situation where I had nobody in the entire country to talk with, and very limited communication with family back in the U.S., which wound up giving me plenty of time to adjust to the new situation and learn to really, really enjoy it. So the answer to how did I come to Japan? How did this happen? Dumb luck. Absolute, like everything that could have gone right went right, and everything that went wrong in exactly the right way. So this marks the end of this chapter, how I came to Japan. I cannot imagine that this is going to be of any use to anybody. I don't think that you're going to necessarily be able to replicate it if that's what your intention is. But if you take anything away from this, it is that if my dumbass could just happily luck into, getting this done, then you out there with your competence and effort and thinking about things before you do them, you should have absolutely no problem at all. I've been the Hobby Drifter. This is Mugito Hopukuro. I did not get a chance to drink very much of it during this video on account of that it's hard to drink and talk at your camera. Thank you very much for joining me. I will have part 2 up in the near future. If you do have any questions or any comments or any criticisms or suggestions of what you would like to hear, where you would like me to direct the topics that are coming up, please feel free to let me know down in the comments. You can also follow me on Twitter at HobbyDrifter. Thank you very much, and happy hobbying.